Hello and welcome to the 5-Minute Roundup, where I bring you the latest news and advice on which players to pick up for your team, all in less than the time it takes your government to refuse to feed poor children this winter. Odell Beckham has a torn ACL and won't be returning this season. He might have been in for a big game had he not suffered the catastrophic injury, as Baker ended up in a shootout with Joe Burrow. Kenyon Drake is expected to miss multiple weeks with a high ankle sprain. While the timeline is vague at the moment, there are a lot of parallels between this injury and the one that has already held Christian McCaffrey out for 5 weeks. Chris Carson has suffered a mid-foot sprain and is described as week to week. It's time for the weekly 49ers running back injury segment. If you had Jeff Wilson for week 7, come up and collect your prize. Wilson was having a career day up to this point, and Jerick McKinnon has seemingly fallen out of favour. That all resulted in Michael Don't Be Hasty taking on the workload from Wilson. I hope you picked Jermichael Hasty's mystery box last week, but if not, make sure you grab him now. Assuming Jeff Wilson misses time with what looked to be a serious injury, Hasty is at worst one part of a two-man backfield, and at best the leader for one of the best rushing teams in football. LaMichael Pirine might have finally made his way to the top of the Jets depth chart. Bell is gone and Pirine outsnapped and outperformed Frank Gore this week. It is the Jets, so his upside is minimal, but a starting running back is still a very valuable fantasy asset. Chase Edmonds should already have been rostered in your league, but if not, he is a priority add due to the Kenyon Drake injury, though the Cardinals are on bye this week. An interesting one-week option with some long-term potential is rookie DJ Dallas. He is the last man standing with Carson, Hyde and Homer all picking up injuries this week. There were a couple of other injuries either just before or during week 7 that made a couple of other guys interesting. Keep an eye on Giovanni Bernard and Wayne Gorman to see if their teammates Joe Mixon and Devonta Freeman will be kept out again in week 8. Sterling Shepard is back, and he announced his return in style. He seems to have been dropped in a lot of leagues, a good argument for having IR spots, so if he is available, he is the priority add at wide receiver. Nelson Aguilar had himself a nice game, and now has a touchdown in each of his last 3. Your exciting mystery box pick for this week is Denzel Mims. The rookie made his debut this week, seeing 7 targets from Sam Darnold, with Jamison Crowder and Brashard Perryman banged up. There is plenty of opportunity for Mims to flash his second-round talent. Richard Rodgers. Remember this happy chappy? The former Packer tight end has shown up for the Eagles with Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert both on IR. Clearly Carson Wentz likes throwing to the position, so Rodgers should continue to see plenty of volume. This week's matchup with Dallas could be a cakewalk too. Harrison Bryant was the number 1 tight end this week. His opportunity came with Austin Hooper missing with appendicitis, so this is only a viable 1-week pickup if Hooper misses again. Is Baker back? Possibly not for real football, but for fantasy football, if he keeps slinging it, he'll score you points. This week he takes on the Raiders, who just gave up 37 points to a 43-year-old vegan. If you picked up Teddy Bridgewater last week, you can roll him out again, as he plays Atlanta. His previous visits to the streaming section have resulted in 20 and 19 points. It's not exciting, but it's also about as safe as you can get. My final recommendation, if you're still struggling, is Derek Carr. He's been solid, with everything in a 15 to 22 point range since week 2, and the matchup with Cleveland certainly doesn't suggest it's about to change. The Chargers take on the Denver Broncos offense, who just gave KC a ridiculous 24 points. The Tennessee Titans take on the Cincinnati Bengals. This one is a bit riskier, as Joe Burrow has looked very good at times, but just 2 weeks ago they gave the Colts 22 points, and Tennessee are a very stout defense in their own right. Ignore both of these if you have the Eagles defense from last week. They get Dallas and the rookie Ben DiNucci. Expect turnovers. Matt Prater almost made this section last week and finished up as the number 2 with 15 points on the week, and might have stopped me from having my first off week of the year. You can't win them all, but you can certainly try and chase the points, as Matty P is at home in a dome against the Colts this week. If Rodrigo Blankenship got dropped in your league, go pick him up. He was the number 1 in the league before his bye and plays in a dome this week in Detroit. Incredibly, that's the only game in a dome in week 8, so get one of those guys. If you can't, go chase the points on Tyler Bass. The 20 against the Jets is clearly not going to happen again, but this week he faces the Patriots, who have given up at least 8 points to kickers in their last 4 games, including 22 points to Brandon McManus 2 weeks ago. Just be sure to keep an eye on the weather, as we are starting to get into snow season.